so let's talk about straw and hay for just a minute. They get kind of used interchangeably sometimes, which is wrong. I've got both bales behind me. They look very similar. There's hay on the bottom, straw up on top. Very similar size and shape. You can find them as small square bales, big round bales, a bunch of variations. Hay is just grass. Usually grass, some grass clover mix that's been cut out of a field. A high nutrient content, you know, especially if you're feeding a ruminant like a cow, sheep, horses. They can break down the cellulose in hay, and it's highly nutritious for an herbivore, a ruminant that's living off grasses. Now, straw, on the other hand, is actually cereal grains like your wheat, your barley, your rye, your oats, and the difference being that you have this stalk. It's all kind of mangled, but you have a stalk that comes up, that grows, that in the summer may look kind of like grass, but then at the top of the grass it will have a seed head. Well, that seed head is where our grains are, and that's the nutritious part. The rest of the stalk is pretty much a hollow tube, much more fibrous, and next to no nutrition compared to hay. Now there may be some in there, but it's really minimal. When it comes to pigs, they have a monogastric stomach and system, the same as we do. All right, we don't really break down cellulose that well. We can eat vegetables and it's good in our diet, but they're not really eating grasses and plants solely as a means to live like a cow or a ruminant would. So, that being said, hay is really good for bedding. It's very soft. It's generally super available, especially if you're buying a mulch hay or a lower quality grade feed hay. You know, something you're not going to be feeding to horses who can be picky at times. You know, the nutritional value doesn't matter that much. We just want to use it as bedding. Hay is great because it's super available, super cheap, and it stays super warm and toasty. They love it. They can burrow inside it, and they will eat some of this. You'll definitely watch pigs playing around. In the wintertime, they love to chew on it, mess around with it. They like to have that stuff, and the summertime they won't as much. So if you give them a fresh bale, they'll get really excited. And it's pretty decent stuff. The problem with it, though, is that because the stalks are solid and it's grasses, it's flat, it compacts super easy, and you can't get a lot of air in there. We're talking about like the wood chips, and that structure allows for a lot of oxygen to get in there. Well, oxygen's kind of what you need for composition to happen. You know, you need oxygen along with your carbon and nitrogen, water, and oxygen. Those kind of the four ingredients to make it happen. If you take a bunch of hay and it gets packed down and packed down and packed down, it goes anaerobic. When you run into anaerobic conditions, that's when you tend to get a lot of your bad bacteria, a lot of your bad smells, a lot of your bad odors. Those are indicators of bad bacteria at play and bad potential pathogens. So hay can be good in moderation if that's all you're using. Be aware it's probably going to break down and pack down. And it can be really difficult to get air inside there. Now, when I couple this with wood chips, the pigs are going to turn it up. It gets all mixed around. You have an opportunity for the nitrogen in the manure to grab onto that hay very quickly and break it down, but you still have a larger lignin cellulose structure in the wood chips that kind of slow things down so your hay just doesn't burn up and then you have no bedding left. You still have something behind. And that's kind of the way that I like to approach it, is to have that mixed carbon structure in play. Straw works really well in that capacity too. What's nice about straw is that as a strict bedding material, it's just purely bedding. It's probably one of the best because you have all these little hollow straws. You have tons and tons of air, and it can trap a lot of air like insulation. The pigs love straw. They really won't eat it. They'll mouth on it and fool around with it and toss and what have you. But they love to bed down in straw. You give them a big old mound of it, and they're all going to sneak right down inside and be just as toasty warm as can be. It won't mat nearly like hay does. you know, they'll squish it, but it has a lot of spring to it, and it tends to stay much fluffier. So when you get a lot of manure and straw mixed together, it does break down super fast, so you tend to go through a lot of it, but it tends to be much more airy, much more lighter. When it comes time to clean out all your deep bedding, it's way easier to get in there. It stays fluffy and light, whereas when you're using hay, you can get these like layers like lasagna that are just like packed and moldy and just like hard. You know, there's just no oxygen getting in there, and straw really helps kind of alleviate that. The downside to straw, at least up here in the Northeast, is that it can be very expensive to get. It can be easily double the price of hay, at least for our region. Maybe different where you're at. So I tend to use both 3-to-1 or 4-to-1. So for like every 3 or 4 bales of straw that I use, I'll toss out 1 bale of hay, because they love it. They love that diversity. They can munch on and play with it, and there's going to be some waste. But that way I'm ensuring that the hay is getting mixed in with the straw, so that our substrate is not getting packed down and anaerobic. It's staying airy and light. And that works pretty well for a long time. What we'll run into, obviously, is where we have now, where the ground is really wet, and now things have thawed out. And so there just isn't enough straw to keep up with the moisture and manure. And so thankfully, that's why we have wood chips now. So we can bring in all three, make a nice structure, and then go from there to kind of dry out this ground, capture all that manure and nitrogen, mix in the hay and straw, and that will just continue to break down. It'll give off heat. The pigs will be happy as can be. When it comes time in the spring to clean all this out, half of that wood chip will all be broken down into soil. It will be much lighter and easier to work with. It'll smell better. It'll have captured most of that manure. It's a much more pleasant experience. So those are just really kind of the big differences between hay and straw. Strictly bedding, I tend to go towards straw, but I definitely use hay, no problem. If it is just their strictly bedding area, where they're going their bedroom, there's plenty of times that I will use just hay, no problem, because what I have. So one thing about hay, it has this almost the ideal carbon-nitrogen ratio, because there's a lot of dead matter within the bale, but there's also a lot of green matter, a lot of nitrogen trapped in there also. So if you were to take a hay bale, get it wet, bring it back inside, it's going to start breaking down. You know what I mean? It's going to start to mold and compost and slowly just break down, turn to soil all on its own. It's pretty cool. So those are kind of like the top generic, general, readily available beddings you're probably going to find for your pigs. Now you may be in a place where you can find shredded corn cobs. You know, I know a lot of people that raise horses will use wood pellets. You get them a little wet and they expand. They're made for bedding. You can certainly do that. They're super expensive, you know, especially at the scale I'm working at. And a lot of those times, those farms are not running deep bedding systems. They're treating their bedding area, like say for horses, more like a litter box. They go to the bathroom, they clean it out, they go from there. Whereas the pigs tend to have a designated bedroom, and then they just have areas to go to the bathroom in. So we're always kind of lasagna methoding, covering over that manure with fresh carbon to capture it, and then constantly like stacking and creating a deep well of composting action that just breaks down into soil is our goal. We want to capture all those nutrients, turn it into soil, and then use that soil elsewhere. Right? So just different strategies. So look around your area. Those are kind of what I use up around here, because they're the either the most readily available, the best for my intentions, and we've just found to be successful. So I hope this helps out, guys, and gets you off on the right foot, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks.